All right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Since YouTube is Pastor Dowell. We're still in Wilmington, North Carolina, and we're on our way to having Sabbath with the saints of the Most High. Yeah, I'm making this video here this morning because it's obvious. It's becoming very obvious because as Sister Carol and I drive down the road, we actually use this as an opportunity to actually look into some of the other ministries out there just to see what they're saying. And it's obvious that a lot of these ministries are following the coattails of Straightway. It's just that they turn around and repackage and rehash things certain ways. And then what happens is you have a lot of people that listen to Straightway, and then they go back to these ministries asking questions based on things that we teach and we preach. Now, first of all, it's going to be very, very difficult for many people out there to understand what is sound doctrine and what is real true doctrine of today when you're eating off a bunch of tables. Because, you know, going back and questioning the pastors or the leaders, things that they don't preach and teach, and has never experienced. Because remember, I always say that the people with the argument is always at the mercy of the ones with the experience. And that's just a fact, and that's just the truth. You're not going to get anything favorable to said about us if we speak in tongues and they don't. They're going to come up with some type of way using words to trump what the Bible says, and it's going to make you feel good if you believe that way. But in function and in reality and in truth and in fact, you just got finished being fleeced from what the Bible says. We cast out devils, all right? And there are people claiming to be under Christ, following Christ. There are people claiming to be Israelites, and they don't cast out devils. Now, what are we going to do? I mean, all that was under Christ's time, and that wasn't even during Moses' day under the law. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, my suggestion is you obey the Bible. But also, you need to become very proactive and start looking behind words that are presented to you in English, because English is not a concrete language. It loses strength. That's what it does. So, you know, many of you people, you're keeping your leaders confused out there, because if you're eating off my table and you listen to what I'm preaching and teaching, then you're going to go over there and talk to another preacher and teacher who doesn't even live or believe. I mean, for instance, I believe in come out of her, my people, and be ye separate. I live that way. I don't just talk about it, I live that way. Now, if you don't live that way, you're going to go find somebody else that don't live that way. It's going to make you comfortable in your lifestyle. Because you're going to be very uncomfortable listening to me unless you're making some type of moves to actually live this way. And that's just a fact. So this morning, I noticed that a lot of people now are bringing up the subject of what they call polygamy. And again, I am sure that people have not researched this nor studied this, and I'm very sure that people are not interested in the Hebrew lifestyle culture and Christ in itself, because they just simply are not learned enough, studied enough to know what the book says. And of course, they use many different angles to try to discredit what the Bible says, but still the fact remains. Now, you have to understand, Pastor Dowell, I really, truly do not care too much about what other ministries say. I don't. I have the full understanding that we're all not going to come together until Christ comes, because we're just simply too divided. And that's why if you have the ears to hear and you're listening to a preacher or teacher, you need to support them 100% and stick with them. That's what you need to do. And you're going to know by your lifestyle if you're bearing good fruit or not. And that's what you should do. But anyway, you know, you're not going to get people in this world to preach the doctrine of bigamy. Bigamy is where a man or woman goes out and they achieve multiple marriage license. Now, that's against natural man's law. And I'm going to tell you flat out that God, that's what you call him, he don't care one bit about the laws of his land. He don't care one bit about America. He cares about his laws. Then people use the term polygamy. If you notice, I don't use that term, because polygamy is multiple marriages. It's pretty close to polyandry, but I don't believe in the word polygamy, because I believe that it loses strength. It doesn't really truly speak to the truth of if we're going to use Greek terms like polygyny does. Polygyny means multiple wives. That's what it means. So there's a difference between the word polygamy and polygyny. And so when people, they get out here and they begin to speak and not understand the etymology of words because it's commonly used, you're going to make the same mistake that a lot of people have done many, many times over and over again, thinking that you understand what sound doctrine is, and you really, truly don't. I just so happen to believe that in this area, some people have it right. And of course, I've always been one to go against wind and tide. I really, truly do not care about anyone and what they say if they cannot support the fact of the scriptures. I heard somebody say that, you know, if a woman has been with a man, then she cannot be with another man. That's Christian doctrine. That is not biblical Israelite doctrine, because when you go to Deuteronomy 24, and that gives us the provision for divorce. When you go there, it clearly tells you that this woman can go out after she has received a bill of divorcement and be another man's wife. Now, it's obvious that this woman has already had a man inside of her, or a husband. So, you know, we have a lot of ignorance of the law that's speaking, and it's going to affect a lot of people. Now, hey, consenting adults in this world, you can pretty much do what you want, and you're doing it anyway. Whether it be in truth or in error, you're still going to do it regardless. But you people have to understand, I am a preacher. I am charged to teach. And you're not going to teach me. You're not going to teach me anything concerning the book. Because number one, you don't live it. You don't live it. And number two, you don't have the understanding and the comprehension. I'm talking about members, lay people, that's what people call them today. You're not qualified. And then there's a lot of ministers and preachers out there that simply have not been sent of Christ, but they've been sent of them own selves. And that's just the way it is. So, you know, that's the reason why you don't hear me going out here attacking other ministries, because I just thank the Father that Christ's name is even named today. Hopefully you can pull more people at least away from Christianity. But, you know, when you go back and you look in the book and see that God said to David, when he had committed adultery with Bathsheba and took Uriah the Hittite's wife, and that is unlawful. That is not right. All right. And God dealt with it swiftly. Yet and still, he did not command David to divorce Bathsheba. And not only that, he did take life for life. That was God's justice in that. But God had told David that if you would have wanted more wives, I would have given it to you. Now, isn't that amazing? Now, isn't that something? That's something that people want to avoid, because with women in this culture, in this society, and men in this culture, in this society, it's a very sensitive subject. Why? I don't know. Because most of you have been living in serial polygyny or serial polygamy anyway. Because many of you women out there have had multiple men inside of you transgressing the law. And many of you men have went and humbled a lot of women transgressing law, and have not taken on the direct responsibility of covering them and providing for them, because you have made them your wives. And whether you like it or not, man, when you go inside of a woman, she becomes your wife, period, point blank. Now, do I care about what you think? No, I don't. No, I don't. Do I care about what other ministries think? Not one bit. It has no bearing on me whatsoever at all. But I do know this. I do know that hardly any of these ministers, in reference to this subject of polygyny, is ever going to have a civil discussion openly, recorded, live, debate with Pastor Dowell on this subject. Now, that I am sure of, because I call for it all the time. And because when we remove the emotion and when we remove feelings out of it and all we have left is facts, then we find out who really, truly is sticking with the book and who's supporting Yah and not a personal opinion. So it's just a shame, the things that we've adopted today. And, you know, and make it simple. Everybody is not commanded to live this lifestyle. So be at peace. If you don't want to, don't. Even if you're in a marriage and you have a man that is an Israelite, and you tell him that you don't want to be a part of his lifestyle, then leave. I mean, that's all you have to do. Go somewhere else. It's still not going to stop that man once he understands. Because, you know, it's amazing. The age-old adage is that men want to amass wives, want to build harems. And all these are just, you know, these are nonsensical arguments, because all they do is incite and inflame emotions and feelings, and it does not speak to the Hebrew culture. Let's just deal with the facts, and let's end with this. Abraham had more than one wife. Was Abraham wrong? why come Yah never reproved him? He was the father of faith. Why is that? Yitzhak had one wife, and the Most High didn't have any trouble with that. Jacob had 4. Now you tell me what's true and false. I mean, after all, God never did rebuke any of these patriarchs for having multiple wives. I mean, hey, you may not like it because you have been conditioned after a Roman Gentile mindset. And Yah is not asking for your opinion or my opinion in this. What he is asking is he's asking for me to represent his truth, and that I'm going to do. And everyone that is of the truth, they will hear. Moses had 3 wives. David, 17, and concubines. And of course, we all know about Solomon. And now that's called multiplying wives right there. But it's amazing. Isn't it amazing? And then there's the Levirate law, which many of you are not familiar with, that if a brother died and have not raised up any seed with his wife, did you know that his wife was commanded to be joined to his brother? That's Israelite law. That is the truth. That is written in the law. So what are you going to do about it then? And then what are you going to do about the shocker that many of you cannot receive, that Christ was also born in a polygynous family? And you can't speak to it because you haven't studied. You don't know. And then most of you go straight to the New Testament. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. On. Have you looked behind those words? You really, truly want to take up this kind of argument and debate? Well, the bottom line is, given our present society with the homosexuals, and men are being actually taken outside of the Israelite community by this wicked spirit, and also death and drugs and prison and everything else, we ain't gonna have no other choice anyway but to rebuild our culture the Bible way. Like Israel went into Egypt 70 and came out a great nation. There's much to be desired, a lot to learn, but know this. I don't want to say all this. I'm gonna preach and teach on this simply because there's an undermining tone that doesn't want this subject or topic discussed or talked about, but I'm gonna preach about it and teach about it a whole lot more in the upcoming months, so that everybody can try to dissect and dissect and do everything else. But I am going to tell the truth of it, and I don't care if you don't like it or not. Totally irrelevant to me. Why should I care about someone that doesn't even support me? You understand what I mean? It's totally irrelevant. But again, if you're in so much pain and you're in so much suffering, and if you have a husband that is speaking like that, then leave, go somewhere else. But see, most of you don't want to do that, though. Isn't that the truth? But anyway, hey, the one thing it will do is it will bring about a strong unity, family unity, cohesive unity, and it will bring about a strong Israelite family, and that's just the truth. Hey, y'all have a wonderful day. Almost there at the place. Shabbat Shalom.